those themes.
Now it's all good. Sorry for that.
That's all right. So as I was saying, I hope that my talk about work with young people and with schools has links to the questions that you've been talking about around motivation and young people for citizen science and community development as well. Um, Andrea, am I able to? No, you could you
I will.
enable me to
Yes.
to share my screen, please?
Yes. Now you can.
And if I can find my no, I'm in the wrong place. Please, there we go. Here we have and I'll move you across so I can present. Can I ask if you can all see that
No,
screen?
we're seeing your files actually.
Ah, okay.
Mhm.
I need to do that again.
Yeah. No worries.
And now you should be able to.
Yes.
Does that work?
Yes. Perfect.
Well, thank you again. Um, I'm wanting to talk about the links between citizen science and education. And I start with a picture of a 9-year-old pupil in a primary school in Nottingham who is examining the gills of a fish because he came into the school and wanted to know how fish breathe underwater. And so the project that then developed enabled him to examine the gills, the breathing mechanism of a fish. And he conducted a dissection of the fish, even though he was 9 years old. I'll come back to that in a moment. Oh, now what is happening? Oh, I see. Okay, I'll do it that way. Um, so as Andrea was saying, my organization is an education charity, and we are interested in bringing together these three concepts: curiosity, creativity, and community. And for us, the importance is that we don't just simply talk about science, we talk about curiosity. And we don't just talk about the arts, we talk about creativity because we believe that those are fundamental. They underpin all of our learning disciplines. So all of the projects that we develop with Ignite are designed to create opportunities for communities to express their curiosity in creative ways. So we frequently bring together communities, and those could be schools, but they could equally be neighborhoods or groups of people, on and bring together them with researchers, and they could well be scientists, and creative practitioners, and they very well could be artists. This Venn diagram, this diagram sums up a lot of what we do. And you may be familiar with some of these other links between the different concepts. So where community and creativity come together, you might find community-based choirs or music groups. You might find book clubs or youth theatres or dance schools. And where the community and curiosity comes together, you might find amateur astronomers or people, ornithologists, watching garden birds, and the global competition called the City Nature Challenge. And where creativity and curiosity come together, you may also find invention and other forms of innovation. now. Well, here we go. But when we're talking about school communities and the role of citizen science, what is it in that overlap at the center of this diagram that enables us to bring together these concepts in a citizen science project? Well, for me, it's that schools have always had the capacity for creating projects of research. There's no reason why research and surveys cannot be conducted in schools. They don't just have to happen in research laboratories or in universities. And so this book, The School Looks Around, actually dates from 1948. And it's a handbook for schools to tell them how to conduct local surveys. And so it particularly focused on local conditions, both in the environment and in the economy and social fabric of society, to local schools. And I think it's a brilliant reference book, really, because it indicates that schools can do surveys and conduct research way back in our history. And then just last month, the UK conducted its census. It does this every 10 years. And so we brought this to what we call the primary parliament in Nottingham and invited the children to conduct their own census about the topics that mattered to them. And it was rather revealing because within the social context, one school discovered that there were 22 different languages spoken in their top 2 years at the school. In one school, 22 different languages. And a school for children with disabilities and special needs also discovered that more children used feeding tubes than spoons and forks to eat. And I thought that was a topic, obviously, that mattered to them. It was important to them, but it was them conducting their own survey. So even in a school for children with special needs, such research can be conducted. But I particularly wanted to talk to you about a project that we run at Ignite called Lab 13, which is a space in a school where children manage their own investigations. And the importance is it's a space where they learn to be scientists as well as learning science. So another research project that Lab 13 conducted was somebody came up with the idea of the question, is honey good for you? And I picked up the reference to your beekeepers in Ukraine. But the children wanted to know, is honey good for you? And so they conducted a research project and gave each child in the school a spoonful of honey, or half the school a spoonful of honey, and the other half with a control group. And they conducted a citizen science project based on that topic. They found that Manuka honey, which is the most expensive, didn't have any special benefit. The other feature about a Lab 13 is that they employ or they engage a scientist in residence who isn't a teacher, but is somebody there to introduce the science methodology to them, so that they, as I said a moment ago, they learn to be scientists as well as learning science. Oh, there we go. Oh dear. I haven't got the buttons to work properly. So the kinds of topics that are proposed by Lab 13, and I mentioned that there is a management committee. One school wanted to test the air quality in the school, outside the school. So they put up air quality monitors as a science project, citizen science project. Another school wanted to discover and do a project around plastic pollution. Another wanted to do a project around biodiversity. They wanted to do a project that looked at the different species in and around the school. And this is a project from last year, so that even in lockdown, pupils were able to do their own project about arm span and height. Is there a link? So the link to Lab 13 is here, and after I've done my slide presentation, I'll put these links into the chat for everybody. But there is a handbook about Lab 13, and the other reference there is where the children post their research findings. This is another project that we have been running recently at Ignite. It's also been run in association with the Nottingham Festival of Science and Curiosity, which we are the producers for. So a curious child asks around 70 questions a day. So how can we satisfy this innate curiosity in our students? And perhaps more importantly, how can we maintain that curiosity and sustain it as children grow older and they become, if you like, further into the studies and the curriculum that is imposed on them? How can we retain that questioning that is innate in children? So this is another project where we invite children to propose the topic, the subject for their research. And this is, again, a handbook for teachers that guides them through that process. And I would love to just read you this quote from Tuve Jansson, who is the Finnish writer. She said this: "It is simply this: do not tire, never lose interest, never grow indifferent. Lose your invaluable curiosity and you let yourself die. It's as simple as that." And in due kind of reference to Tuve, my background is a picture from Finland. So the essence of the Curiosity Project is very much about gathering up the questions from the children and converting them, turning them into a research project where they can be the citizens in the citizen science. Now, we've been doing this with a number of schools, and we've been able to make an award to the individual pupils, which is called a Crest Award. It's like a bronze, silver, or gold award for science investigation. And then once a year, we invite the schools to come together to present their research findings, their projects, at something we call the Real Science in Schools Symposium. And this has become part of the Nottingham Festival of Science and Curiosity. Now, I won't read through all of those aims and objectives, but you can see that it's designed really to respect the questions that children themselves have. So I'm a little ahead of, well, about on time, Andrea. So perhaps this is the point to pause and ask if anybody would like to ask any questions.
Maybe somebody help me with translation. I want to ask one question connected with age of people and using the science, citizen science, for example. I heard a lot of examples of young people, but I think about elder people whose age more than 60, пенсіонери, да, от якщо говорити, а люди похилого віку, поважного пенсіонера, як help me with translation.
Did you mean older people, or older
Lupo,
students?
can you help us with the last part?
Yes, so I think what she meant was the people who are over 60 years old, who are retirees and older.
Yes, thank you for your question. I don't see any difficulty in projects with older people, and I will go back to sharing my screen because I have another slide here, which is called Night Walks. And this is for families. I know that this picture actually shows, again, young people, because I wanted to talk particularly about young people and education. But this is a project where we take families on walks after sunset to examine kind of local environments and so on. And I mean, this particular example was a project with families from the Refugee Forum, you know, people who have fled conflict. So there are refugee families in Nottingham. But there are also some older people, parents and grandparents involved in this. And so I think that, you know, it's a matter of connecting with the group and having those conversations. And sometimes we work with groups directly, and sometimes we will find a partner that will introduce us. So working with local libraries is a great way to meet older people, because there are often older people meeting at libraries, and then you can talk to them about the kind of topics that they are interested in and whether we can build a project around that. I mean, I'm conscious that I'm talking about a time before COVID-19 and the coronavirus. But we are also doing a number of projects with schools online as well. So we are doing an online version of Lab 13, which starts next week.
I hope that you can see the possibilities that citizen science brings to a space of informal education and education also with the curriculum as a space for developing and fostering curiosity and that real basic wonder of discovery that happens so much in everyone, but is more more fostered and stimulated in the childhood of every kid, but then somehow it gets lost as we turn adults. And I think that this is also something very important to keep in mind, that education is not only we should keep that sense of curiosity and joy of discovery along our lives, and bring these matches among education and citizen science and keep them along our ways.
May I?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Rick. That was a very inspiring talk. It was very nice to listen to you on this. You said working with schools. Can you elaborate a bit how you do that and where the problems are in working with schools?
Yes, schools are incredibly busy, and they come under a lot of pressure, especially in UK, United Kingdom, because they are they're tested, and there's a lot of pressure on them to go, achieve high results and so on, and so it takes time to establish the relationships, and the way that we do it is that, again, we work with partners, we work with governing bodies. I'm a school governor, and so one of the schools is the school where I'm a school governor, and we also work with the umbrella body, the local authority, the school's authority, and we communicate through them. They have newsletters and communications that way, and that's how we get the message across, if you like, or make make the offers to schools about projects that we were wishing to do. We find it easier to work with non-examination classes. So that tends to be primary schools, so up to 11 years old, and then the junior part of secondary schools, so perhaps up to 14-year-olds, are the kind of age groups to look for. And I'm just copying some of those links that I mentioned earlier into the chat for you. There we go. And the handbook for Lab 13, for example, is a free download, and it gives you a full kind of explanation of how they work.
Yes, Lubko?
Well, I'm also I teach at the university, and I face a lot of motivational problem with students because they overloaded, especially in the Corona time. And how do you have techniques how to motivate students or school children to participate in projects like this? Because at the first sight, there is no immediate benefit for them. There is no reward for them. How do you do this?
Yes, thank you, Lubko. There is a need to do science communication and outreach from universities in the UK. It is becoming almost part of the degree course, or certainly at master's level. There is an expectation that you communicate what you are doing to others. And sometimes universities find that quite a challenge, because they end up talking to each other. They just go to conferences, or they just go to talks amongst the student body. So what we can do is offer them another outlet, another way of fulfilling that requirement to do some form of outreach, or science communication. And of course, universities are becoming more conscious of the city that they're located in. You know, they are becoming civic universities, and that's an important factor as well.
Can I ask a few more questions about that? That's awesome, civic universities, but universities usually, even in Germany, Central Europe, they are in closed communities of some sort. That's a closed environment. They don't want to go out. They have no purpose to go out. They kind of brought in their own soup. How do you make them civic? How you can help them to become civic? Is it is a bottom-down approach, top-down approach? How is it working in UK?
Well, I don't think there is a single answer, Lubko, unfortunately, to this. There is not a single answer. But I think it can be top down. I think it can be bottom up. I mean, we find groups of students who want to come and work for us, work with us on a work placement or on a piece of experience. It takes time to raise your profile within the city as an organization that talks to schools or runs a festival. The festival is a very good mechanism, is a very good vehicle, if you like, for engaging students. We do other things as well, which perhaps also are slightly unusual in that we work with artists and musicians and others. And that sometimes is attractive to students. You know, we produce a magazine for the festival, and students were keen to write for the magazine or to help design it, do the graphic design. But I'm afraid, Lubko, it's a long process and there isn't a single solution to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Rick, and I am lucky to know John Rea from the City Council in Nottingham, and I think that having a person like him with the level of commitment, a person that really believes in this in engagement and in opening spaces and bringing people together from all walks of life, also makes a difference and facilitates things. What do you think about that?
That is absolutely right, Andrea. We work across a network that includes the local authority, the city council that John works for, that Andrea has just referred to. We work with both the city universities, but we also work with community organizations, community development and support networks, and so on. And so we are actually quite well networked in the city. And so if you can find an official in the local authority, in the city council or your rural council, who perhaps has their own interest in perhaps a project or science or whatever, that make alliances, make networks. Yeah, thank you for that reference, Andrea.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Rick, thank you very much for the inspiration and the ideas. I hope.
Well, I hope that I do not mispronounce, but I will say Diakuyu.
Tabbi, or is that yesterday I also said Diakuyu Tabbi.
Diakuyu. Okay.
Okay, thank you again, Rick, and I will stop the recording.